Dr. Sally?
I think at this time, I would rather not go upon his way, because I know he's happy to criticize the president. But at the moment, I would say let's tread carefully. Where we are is not a very good place to be. Yes, I agree with him that it's only 3% who purportedly succumbed. Italy has a very high older generation population, and they have had a very high death rate. But equally for us, as Italy has a high population of elderly people, for us we have a higher population of immunocompromised people. Even these young people we are talking about who are malnourished, if they are malnourished, their immunity is also down. And in our African situation, malnutrition is a common thing. So even our young people, our children, will be susceptible to this because of the malnutrition that we go, especially in the informal settlements and places like those, where nutrition is not so good. So actually we have a huge pool of potential, not just potential people to be infected, but people who can succumb to this illness. As I listed earlier, apart from what he has mentioned, I didn't mention the effect of malnutrition. We do have that also, and we have a lot of it. So we need to be very careful. And remember, not all infected people are sick, but they are shedding the virus. Yet, our contact tracing is not so efficient.
Yes.
We are only, now for testing, so far we were testing in 2 centers. I think now they have increased them to 3 or 5 or so. They are still not enough. With a population of almost 50 million people, with the testing centers countable on our 10 fingers, if they are there at all, that means we are not even testing enough. So imagine what has been happening where people have been dying in the villages without being diagnosed. Yes. This will also happen with coronavirus. People will die in the villages without being diagnosed, and they'll have infected very many other people. So that's why I'm saying, because of our deficiencies, both economically and all that, we need to lock down now. Then that way we are able to save more people. And lockdown is essentially, okay, putting it in simpler terms, it's a 24-hour curfew. It's a 24-hour curfew. So actually it's a military event. So the best people they should bring on board are the military generals to sit down and prepare like they would prepare for war and curfew. What would they do? And they should be coached to know that they're now coming to deal with civilians. They're not coming to war as such, but they're coming to deal with civilians so that they tone down on some of the extreme things that they would do left on their own. But to me, this is a military event. And I believe it's a kind of state of emergency, but the president using the Public Health Act can use that. Because if it's declared a state of emergency, he'll need Parliament to approve. But if he likes, you know, president is good at gadgets, he loves gadgets. You remember the tablets for children and now the 4G. He can use that to hold up a virtual parliament sitting. So the MPs can then pass the vote to allow for emergency, so that he can actually have the powers to control this thing. Because remember, if we don't control this thing, it's better to err on the side of taking draconian action, even if eventually it looks like it had been unnecessary. It's better to err that way than to err on not taking drastic action, then something bad explodes. So between the devil and the deep blue sea, which is the best action? So it's better to err on the draconian side and save lives. And even if it ends up looking like it was not going to be a serious thing, and you erred by clamping down, but it's better that way than not doing anything and something explodes and the country suffers. The only silver lining in the cloud that I see is that those who have been corrupt and squirreled out of our money abroad, now their money is just as useless as for the rest of us because the world economy is collapsing. I'm sorry for you, you stole our money, now you are equal to us. As for the Chinese, of recently, part of the rip-off of this country has been by the Chinese. I think it's time they paid back. At this time, I'm sorry to use those terms, but we look at them very badly. That one, the same virus emanated from their place. They have ripped us off, and now we don't hear them doing anything. We hear them. We hear a Chinese individual landing some protective gear in Addis Ababa as an individual. We don't see what these friends of ours have done Okay, they have sent some people to Italy, which is good. They need to send some people to Africa too, to help contain this, because we are suffering also. Look at what's happening in South Africa. And as I said earlier, I agree totally with what Ramaphosa has done. The demographics of South Africa are almost the same as ours, population-wise, in the sense that we have a high number of susceptible people who unfortunately, while they say that young people are not affected as much, but for us, we know that right now the HIV transmission is highest in the younger people. So those people will be prone to mortality if this were to happen to us. So I think it's important that we have us and prepare for a lockdown, because if we don't do that, it's not going to be good for us.
All right.
What Kenyans must accept,
yes,
is that whereas my colleague is calling them draconian laws, it is because the government will have become desperate. You do not need a military officer around you for you to wash your hands. You don't need one around you for you to allow a dead person to be buried immediately after death. You do not need a military person around you for you to practice social distancing. So we are ourselves being irresponsible. Look at the people who have brought this problem so far are the most educated people of the land.
Yeah.
They have. You watched news yesterday at 7 p.m.
Yes.
You saw at the airport when the passengers were being addressed, the arrogant remarks and jibs that came from those people when they were being told you'll have to wait a little bit. People were saying my rights and all manner of things. Those are people from abroad who think that because they are very highly educated, probably because they have money, therefore they are big people, they have better space than the rest of us. If it was not because of the African big man syndrome, the deputy governor of Kilifi would not have done what he did. The priest who did what he did would not have done that, because for information, in the villages, priests are very big people. In fact, I was asking myself, why is the Pope quiet? The Pope should make a pronouncement that people should stop going to church. And because I'm a Catholic, I know that once the Pope says that, there will be no single mass. They should take that responsibility, and I therefore want to thank the young people. I don't know if there is a young people. I saw it on Google. It is not a Kenyan thing, where they have started calling such people COVIDiots. Yeah, it is on Google, and I don't think it is Kenyan. Eh?
It's a worldwide hashtag.
It's now
yes.
COVIDiots. They're being COVIDiots.
Right. We have callers who are hanging on the line before we pick Stanley online. Also, we have Ondara Kelvin on social media saying that these MPs were want to put measures in place to fight this pandemic, e.g. compelling the government to announce a lockdown and to distribute food to homesteads. But instead, they hurriedly adjourned and now yelping and pretending to be with us. This is what Ondara Kelvin is thinking. Why did you have to adjourn?
I forgot to laud our colleague and fellow panelist, Senator Aaron Cheruiyot. He came from London, and the guy quarantined himself. And he has actually done a press conference to tell the people that I'm under quarantine. I'm living in a room, not in the bedroom, away from the master bedroom. My daughter wants to reach me, and I have refused, and the wife. I mean, that's the kind of responsibility we expect from people. Yeah.
And of course, also his quarantine 14 days was ending yesterday. We'll hear from him as well.
I think that comment is very valid.
Yes.
That we adjourned Parliament at such a critical time.
Yes.
And I think the person sending that should actually go back and see what transpired in the Parliament at the time it was adjourned. There was no debate. It was brought up by the leader of majority, seconded by the minority leader, and hardly anybody were contributed. And some noises just put the question. You know the way they have been behaving.
Yes.
So it hurt many of us who had wanted to contribute and suggest otherwise. We were virtually, what I would call, we were virtually bulldozed into this. And then I had a chance to meet...
You're bulldozed to adjourn?
Yes. I met Engineer Toro, a former MP, who asked me, what kind of people are you? You are our leaders. When the country is in trouble, you run away. What do you think? Where do you think the rest of us are? And I think the least we would have done was to allow a sitting of once a week, if necessary, although we don't want large gatherings,
of course,
once a week, and even the shift out, or at the worst, let the health committee continue functioning.
It's true.
Yes, which all committees were put on freeze. They should have allowed at least the security committee, the health committee. So I think it was not a very well thought out thing, but it has happened. So even as he says that what we are saying here, we should have said it in Parliament, we didn't get a chance to say that.
You didn't get a chance.
So we are now getting that chance to say that.
Right, thank you. Let's cross over to, just a moment, we have callers who are hanging on the line. I don't want to lose them. We have Stanley. Stanley is on the line. Good morning.
Morning, Diba.
Morning to you.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Just say hi to the two doctors.